now that the President Trump's policies are starting to take shape, how long will it take to cycle through and get some of the actual prices that Americans are paying to come down?
Prices at the store and at the grocery pump?
All of the above.
Across the board, sure. Well, the president is doing everything he can, obviously, to reduce the cost of living crisis in this country as quickly as possible. That's why he signed a litany of executive orders across the board. In the first couple of weeks here, he declared a national energy emergency. He committed to cutting 10 regulations for every new one on the book. As you know, working for a Fox Business-related outlet, deregulation and energy independence are huge drivers of reducing inflation in this country. And I think Americans can be assured by the results President Trump had in his first term, when, again, inflation was 1.4% when he left office.
Is it months or is it a year? And will Americans have the patience to wait for it?
I don't have a timeline, but the president is doing everything that he possibly can to reduce cost of living for Americans at home.
Now, I'm old enough to remember sitting through an entire campaign cycle where all we heard about was high costs, high prices. And if Donald Trump became president, he would finally do what the Democrats failed to do by bringing costs down. The cost of food and rent and housing and eggs. And don't take my word for it, take his.
I went on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word. The groceries, when you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
So clearly, there's no doubting the potency of this issue. Trump himself credited it with winning him the election. And yet, now that he's actually in office, now that he has the ability to actually wield power, wherein he's had all the time in the world to try and shut down full agencies, pardon 1,600 criminals, try and impose unconstitutional citizenship bans, launch a trade war, threaten regular war against at least 4 separate countries, he's had time to do all of that. And yet, conspicuously absent amid all of this activity is a single step, a single solitary step to actually lower costs for Americans. It's almost like, and I hope you're sitting down for this, it was never actually about lowering costs, and Trump just says whatever he needs to say to manipulate people into voting for him with zero intention of following through. Now, Levitt promised here that the president was doing everything he could as quickly as possible. She explains that he declared a national energy emergency, which might actually carry some weight if we had a national energy emergency that was somehow leading to increased costs. In reality, the U.S. has never produced more energy than it does right now in the aftermath of the Biden administration. This chart is a testament to exactly that, with every energy source growing except coal, which, incidentally, Trump had promised to save during his first term. So I guess broken promises are a recurring theme here. And that's to say nothing of the staggering 300,000 clean energy jobs that were created during the Biden era. So here's the strategy as far as Trump is concerned. He wants to pretend that there's some energy crisis where there is none, also that he can do a few pretend things and sign some executive orders, and then in a few months, he'll point to the already thriving energy sector and take credit for all of it. He's not actually interested in fixing anything, he's just interested in taking credit for what's already working. Levitt also says that Trump's committed to cutting 10 regulations for every new one on the book. Okay, that's great, and if anybody could tell me how that's going to lower costs for American families, I'm all ears. Cutting regulations doesn't automatically mean that costs are going to go down. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's just some right-wing buzzwords. We're not somehow surging the price of eggs because there are statutory regulations on the books. She's just saying words to fill space because she knows that this White House has no interest in doing anything to actually help anyone who is not in the same tax bracket as Trump or Elon. But here's the most ironic part of all of this.
I think Americans can be assured by the results President Trump had in his first term, when, again, inflation was 1.4% when he left office.
That Americans can be assured by the results Trump had in his first term. Yes, inflation was low, so was growth, at an anemic negative 2.2%. So were jobs numbers, at a historically bad net loss of 3 million jobs. So was the unemployment rate, at a dismal 6.4%. So were manufacturing jobs, with a net loss of almost 200,000. So I understand why this administration wants to memory hole the reality of Trump's first term while telling themselves that he was some brilliant president, but in fact he presided over the biggest economic failure in modern American history. You'd have to go back to the Great Depression to find a worse steward of the economy than Donald Trump. So if his first term is the bar for success, then that doesn't exactly inspire confidence. In fact, it's not just Trump and this White House who are involved in this ruse. Here's Mike Johnson also doing his part to fool the rubes who trusted them.
But is their bottom line one piece of legislation targeted at bringing down grocery prices for the American consumer?
It's a complex collection of legislation because we got to unwind and fix everything. I was on the campaign trail all last year, traveling around the country. I logged enough miles to circle the globe 5.5 times. We kept the House majority, we won the Senate majority for the Republican Party, and we won the White House. And we told the American people that we would do well by them. And what I said on the campaign trail was, to summarize, we could be the most consequential Congress of the modern era because we have to fix everything. I mean, everything's a mess. So it's not just one switch that you flip back on. It's a number of them, and we have to make it all work together, and we will.
As a reminder, the question was, is there one piece of legislation targeted at bringing down grocery prices? And that long, winding answer by Mike Johnson was a really, really long way of saying no. Why? Because again, it was never about grocery prices. Republicans do not care about bringing your costs down. They never cared about bringing your costs down. It was theater. It was make-believe to get you to think that they would care about you. And it lasted only until the moment they took power. And now, suddenly, the concern over the cost of your eggs vanishes like a fart in a hurricane. The reality is that if you want to know what Republicans' actual priorities are, you don't have to guess. Just watch what they do. Watch what legislation they pass. They're not going to pass any bills restricting price gouging by food retailers because that's not their priority. And while everybody blamed Joe Biden and the Democrats for high food prices that happened as the result of inflation and price gouging, it was actually Kamala and Tim Walz's plan to take on those exact people.
As president, I will go after the bad actors, and I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
She knows that folks are being squeezed on grocery prices, but let's all be very clear here, folks. You know this in Michigan. I'm a Minnesota guy. Those of us who've been on farms, farmers are getting $3.90 for a bushel of corn and barely $10 for soybeans. They're not getting rich. Somebody in the middle's taking a cut for not growing the corn, not processing the corn, not doing anything.
And while there's no use in relitigating the past, the reality is that only one candidate in the 2024 race actually took on price gougers. The other is a billionaire known for refusing to pay contractors. When the billionaire wins, are we really supposed to be surprised that the concerns of the middle class aren't taken into account? And frankly, we knew to expect that Donald Trump and Republicans would drop the whole "we're gonna help the middle class" shtick the moment they took power because they've pulled this whole charade before. Literally last time they had unified control of government, they swept into office amid promises of an infrastructure law that never happened, a manufacturing renaissance that never happened, a jobs boom that never happened, a middle-class tax cut that never happened, a new healthcare plan that was cheaper and more comprehensive that never happened. But you know what did happen? You know what they did find time for? A tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. That is what their priority is. And if it was their priority back then, just imagine how much more of a priority it's going to be now, when Trump's administration is composed of a record number of billionaires. Elon Musk, Linda McMahon, Howard Lutnick, Charles Kushner, Stephen Wyckoff, Scott Besson, David Sachs, Kelly Loeffler, Doug Burgum, Dr. Oz, and so many more. So the notion that any of these people are there because they're focused on issues that impact real people is a joke. The reality is that Trump and this White House are hoping that we all forget about the promises they made to Americans to get their votes. They're hoping we'll forget about their assurances that food costs and housing costs and rent costs will go down. We won't. Trump may view himself as unaccountable to the American people, but I can promise you, so long as I have a platform, I will remind everybody, left, right, and center, about what these Republicans are doing to hold up their end of the bargain. They may view themselves again as being above accountability, but they're about to learn a lesson about the existence of political gravity. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.